I think we'd probably both like to be able to say that this is all part of some big strategic plan where we envisioned exactly the way things turned out with LBMC, but it wasn't that. We just wanted to do something that was meaningful and served our clients and our employees and us well, and gave us more control of our destiny.
Control our lives. 40 years ago, we had young children. We wanted to be able to take the afternoon off and go to a sporting event or coach a sporting event. And at the same time, we wanted to work on important clients. Like Mike says, I don't think we envisioned how big we could get, but we always wanted to grow because we saw the cycle of growth. Once we get more great clients, we got to get some more people. And it did the thing that I'm probably the most proud of. It's created great careers for a lot of people.
You might recognize those voices as David Morgan and Mike Cain, the visionary founders of LBMC. What started 40 years ago as a small accounting firm in Tennessee has blossomed into an organization with nearly 900 team members spread across 5 offices. Yet, despite the impressive growth, the mission that David and Mike set out with remains unchanged: to serve an incredible group of clients while genuinely enjoying the work they do. I'm Suzanne Reed, LBMC's Chief Marketing Officer, and your host for Make It Count. Welcome to both of y'all. Thank y'all very much for being here. Help the audience. 40 years ago, 1984. What were y'all thinking when you started Lattimore, Black, Morgan, and Cain?
I think the first thought was, God, I hope we can make payroll. I think we'd probably both like to be able to say that this is all part of some big strategic plan where we envisioned exactly the way things turned out with LBMC, but it wasn't that. I mean, I think we wanted to have a good firm. We wanted to serve good clients and deliver great service and be a meaningful firm, but we didn't have any artificial missions of saying we want to be this big or this many people or anything else. We just wanted to do something that was meaningful and served our clients and our employees and us well, and gave us more control of our destiny.
Control our lives.
Mm-hmm.
40 years ago, we had young children. We wanted to be able to take the afternoon off and go to a sporting event or coach a sporting event. And at the same time, we wanted to work on important clients. We didn't want to be like a lot of little small startup firms and do some bookkeeping for very small little companies. We were working with major companies, and we were doing audits and sophisticated tax returns and sophisticated tax planning. And that's what the goal of that firm was. Like Mike says, I don't think we envisioned how big we could get, but at least Mike and I, some others were a little more worried about growth, but Mike and I were never afraid of growth. We always wanted to grow because we saw the cycle of growth. The cycle of growth being we get bigger, we need more people. We get good people, that causes us to get more great clients. Once we get more great clients, we got to get some more people. And it just is an endless cycle. And it did the thing that I'm probably the most proud of. That's a question you'll ask later, but it's created great careers for a lot of people.
Was there anyone in that particular time frame that you were looking to that was inspiring? You know, Mike, I'll ask you that. Was there anyone that kind of inspired you and encouraged you along?
I think we learned a lot of things from a lot of people. We really didn't have any background in building a business. We hadn't been associated with that many businesses in our lives except for the clients we'd worked on in our previous employment. But you know, I learned a lot from Jim Lattimore in terms of just being active in the community and thinking outside the box and that sort of thing. A lot from Charlie Black about just the importance of client service and building good relationships with the clients. But probably I learned as much from a lot of the clients we worked with as anything, because we worked with some great business people. They had solid companies. You know, for me, it was guys like Jerry Carden at Carden & Cherry or Bill Vallette at Lochinvar or George Volkert at Southeast Ventures, people like that were just great business people, but also great people. They treated each other well. They treated their vendors well. They treated their employees well, and they did their job. So I think I learned a lot from those guys as much as anything else.
We were always blessed in having good clients. And people would ask me, what is a good client? And I'd tell them, okay, in my opinion, a good client is one that listens to your advice. They don't have to do everything you tell them, but they at least listen to it. They respect it. Hopefully they act on it most of the times. they're willing to pay you a reasonable fee, not just any fee you want to charge, but a reasonable fee for your work you do. And third, they pay their bills on time. That's a good client.
I think most businesses would agree that's a good client.
I would say one other thing that Mike didn't say is we had some firms that we looked at that we sort of modeled after, and frankly, one of them was Arthur Anderson. Arthur Anderson was a great firm. Unfortunately, they got in trouble later on, but they were a great firm, and they built Anderson Consulting at the same time. And so we were looking at Arthur Anderson and how they operated with Anderson Consulting and provided a lot of services to different clients, and they were a good model for us.
Well, that's good. If you had some young entrepreneurs sitting in front of you, would there be something you would say, I wish we had thought of this, or 20 years ahead, we looked back and said, we missed that? Any of those moments that y'all have had collectively?
Not too many. If we had any, we'd just go back and fix it. I'm not saying we did everything right, because we didn't. We had mistakes along the way. We started some companies that weren't successful. The one thing we learned very quickly was anytime you start a new service line or a new company, make sure you have good leadership that knows what they're doing in that business. Because every time we did that, we were successful. And a couple of times when we didn't do that, we were not successful. So we learned that lesson early on.
Yeah, I don't think you can overemphasize that, to tell you the truth. In general, just the concept of the importance of having the right people. Mm-hmm. That's the place that you really can't compromise. You need people that are good at what they do, but that also fit within the culture you're trying to bring to bear. That fit is really important if you're really going to make progress and keep the other good people that you have.
That's right. One bad person, and particularly one bad partner, can run off a lot of staff. We actually did have to deal with that early on and ask a partner to leave because he couldn't get along with the staff. That was a tough decision, but the right decision.
So even 40 years ago, you all were talking about things that are being talked about today, culture and fit and
relationships. We always talked about relationships. Absolutely. Because we think that's critical to having a successful firm. The relationships you have within the firm, with the people who work there, but the relationships you have with your clients. I've heard people in our business and others say, oh, I don't want to do business with my client, or I don't want to get to know them socially. My clients, they were our best friends, and we got to know them very well. And we were involved in not just their business, but their lives, because what we do touch people's entire lives, not just their business. We're helping them figure out how to be successful and one day retire themselves, and what they do with their business, how to transition that business, and in the meantime, deal with issues that we all deal with, personnel issues and technology issues and things like that we realized as we were dealing with them in our business, our clients were dealing with them too.
Today, a lot of discussion happens around culture and leadership and relationships with clients. Do you think that has changed in 40 years? Or do you think all of that is...
Well, I get to go first this time because, see, I'm the oldest one, and he always...
And I already know what he's going to say. So.
I think culture is two things. One is how you treat your people, and two, how you treat your clients. If you promised your clients you're going to get a project done for them, you're going to do everything in your power to get it done on time, hopefully in advance of time. If you're treating people that work for you, you can't tell them, well, you need to stay here and work till midnight, I'm going home. That's not the way to work. So how you treat people and how you treat your clients is your culture. And if you get that right, that's the vast majority of it anyway.
Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of change in the workforce from when it was 40 years ago when we were starting out. Changes in technology, the pace of change is so much faster. Remote workforce comes into play with everything. But I think the concepts are still exactly the same. It's the way you treat each other. You do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. You're fair, you're honest, and open, and you try to do the best you can. And I think if you do those things, you build those relationships, everything else is just mechanics, just the way you get things done. The way you get things done is different but the principles are not.
Yeah, the culture today is different in the sense that how they work, how the younger generation works is different than how we work. If we wanted to go home and work, we had to carry a big old bag full of work papers home with us. And now you just go home and turn on the computer, and it's just like you're sitting in your office.
Yeah.
And so the technology has made a huge impact on how people work. The cell phone, the little things, the fax machine when we first got one. Of course, that's long gone now. But the cell phones and the ability to share information immediately, it's made it tougher in some sense because back in the old days, client asked for something. We said, well, we'll get that to you in a couple of days. And now a client asks for something. It's like, can you email that over to me right now, even if you don't have it done? So we are working in a much more time-sensitive world now, and it makes it harder to deliver that great client service on a timely basis. So it goes back to setting expectations, how you treat a client. If you say, I can't do that today, I'll have it to you by noon tomorrow, will that be okay? They say, yeah, that'll be fine. And if they say, no, I've really got to have it today, I say, well, let me see if I can find somebody that can help, and we'll do our best to get it done.
Now you're kind of starting to talk about client experience. That becomes so much more important these days. It's not just about the service, it's about the entire experience, right? What the expectations, the right people, the right relationship attitude. So both hit on some timeless business imperatives, I feel like.
There are some timeless things of what get accountants and all professionals in trouble. Return your phone calls timely, or answer your phone the first time if you can. If you can't, return your phone calls timely. And now you got to return your emails timely. So communication on a timely basis with clients is really important. We've got a few people in our firm who still need to learn that. They don't react as quickly as they should. Even when you have a heavy workload, it doesn't take long to react to someone and tell them you can get it done tomorrow or whatever that it is they're looking for.
All about that, setting expectations. I like that. So we've talked a little bit about kind of the start of LBMC and where you all were, kind of what you were envisioning. I think you're being a little humble about what you've said about you didn't think it was going to get, but because you created such an amazing model that I think a lot of people have tried to copy and emulate. You were a little bit ahead of your time. But now let's kind of switch a little bit and talk about the industry is going through such a change, if you will, right now. Any words of wisdom for those people that are coming into the industry? I know you both have grandchildren. If you're grandchildren that are stepping into this or clients, son or daughter, what words would you say to them if they were sitting here right in front of you about the industry and expectations?
I would say the accounting profession, and it's not just accounting because we do so many other things, but the accounting profession, just to start there, because that's where we started, is a wonderful place to start your career. And it's got great opportunities, huge opportunities. And so you don't have to just become an auditor and stay an auditor for your whole life, your whole career. You can do different things. So it's a great opportunity to have a financial training. And of course, all the kids now are better educated than we were. We just had bachelor's degree. They all have master's degrees, and they come to well educated with technology skills and everything. And all they've got to do is figure out how it is to do these things we're talking about in client service and relating with people. And they're going to have a fabulous career and make a very good living to take care of themselves and their family.
I remember Jim Lattimore interviewed me when I was coming out of college, what was with Pete Marvick Mitchell at the time. And he told me that there are two things that are important in being successful in public accounting. He said one is a high energy level, and the other is a high level of intellectual curiosity. And that's always really stuck with me, and I think he was completely accurate about that. And so public accounting is not for everybody, but as David mentioned, it's just a great place to start, even if it's not the place you want to be long-term, because you really get exposed to so much in terms of business concepts and the way people do things and the way that people shouldn't do things. So it's a great place, I think. And in terms of, I guess, advice for people coming into this profession, to me, I think the big thing is to really embrace whatever profession you're going to be in. Get involved with it, help to shape your profession, not just be a member of it, and be involved in your community. Get out there and and broaden yourself as much as you can because it'll make you better at whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we both served as on the board and president of the Tennessee Society of CPAs. I served on the board of the American Institute of CPAs. Mike served on the board of our Association of CPA Firms and was the head of it. We've always believed that. And then, other things that we've been involved in the community, which builds those relationships that are so important. So I agree with what Mike said 100%.
I think something you both have also done, as well as some of the other leaders and founders, is you've shown, you don't tell, you show good leadership, how to take those steps, what to do, how to treat clients, how to treat coworkers, others. So I think that's been a great way for others, younger or, older too, to kind of learn what are the right things to do.
Sometimes older folks need a little reinforcement too, about how they treat people. It's funny. I tell people, hey, when you're in the office and walking down the hallway, it's okay to look at somebody and smile and say hello. And sometimes we forget that.
That's right.
And it's important, especially to young people.
I tell this to my kids and my husband all the time. It's the little things that matter. I mean, it really is. It's not the big, grandiose things. It's the small, everyday things. So I think that's exactly what you're implying. So thinking back on what we've talked about in your career, and not that it's over, I'm sure you both have things baked that you're getting ready to do that none of us know about, and can't wait to see and hear about those. But LBMC is a fabulous legacy, and that's for sure going to be remembered. We have so many people that have benefited, myself included, from being a part of this great organization. But what would you want your legacy to be? If you could say, in a short clip, one word, maybe a phrase, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I mean, it's legacy is pretty broad. There are personal legacies and business legacies and that sort of thing. But I'm proud of LBMC. I'm really proud of what that firm's become. I look back and I see the impact that it's had on the profession, on our community, on our clients' lives, on our employees' lives. And it's created a platform for people to have long, successful careers and do it in a way that they can still have meaningful family lives and do the things that they want to do in their personal space. And so I'm really proud of that.
Well, and I hope that they look at us and our other founders and partners who have been key leaders in the firm, say, those people built a special firm here. It's not like every other firm. It was different, and it was a special place. It's a special place to work.
That's a great legacy. I try to focus on what people are doing right before they retire, but you both, David, you've hit semi-retirement.
I've
Mike,
retired once.
You've retired once. But
I'm
Mike,
going to retire again.
Yeah.
Mike, you have retired,
Yes.
right? So, those days leading up to that, a lot of people say, what do you think about retirement? But what did you focus on right before that? Let's say maybe that 3 to 6 months, because that kind of puts you close to where you are, and it's pretty close in proximity to where you are too. So let's start with Mike. We'll start with you. What were you thinking about? What were you doing? What was on your mind?
Well, it's a little unusual because we sort of did this in 2 phases. We retired out of the CPA firm 9 years ago now, and that was a very major retirement. And we spent a long time, far more than 3 months. We probably spent a few years really getting ready for that because it was a big step for the firm and a big step for us too. And so that was quite a process, trying to identify future leaders and getting people to build consensus on the future direction and that sort of thing. So that was the whole focus right before that retirement.
David, what would you say?
Well, Mike's right. We spent multiple years planning the CPA firm retirement and the change of leadership because we'd been running the CPA firm since it started in '84, so a long time. And the financial services, I'm going to retire from my financial services job at the end of the year. So I've been spending part of this year figuring out who that person is going to be to replace me. We've got that resolved now, John Litchfield. And now I've been working with John to make sure that he's got everything he needs to be able to be successful. And at the same time, just keep on keeping on. I'm not going to retire ever. I'm going to keep an office. I'm going to be a consultant for a handful of clients that depend on me to do things for them. I've got 3 not-for-profits that I'm very active on boards with. I've got a public company board that I'm on. So I got plenty to do, and I don't think I ever want to just not do anything. And I know Mike doesn't not do anything. He has lots of things that he does too, and one of them being he travels all the time. So I may travel a little more too.
So I think a theme I heard, and I think it's a testament to both of you, that I think it's something we continually talk about at LBMC, is you both were more worried about the continuation and who was kind of going to step in. And so, Mike, you clearly said it, and you said it took a little bit longer with the PC because you all had been there longer. It was the first kind of transition. But with the financial services, there was a little more of that already in place. And so it's a little different scenario, right?
Yeah, we've always worked on succession planning. It's not just succession planning of the top person. You got to be finding new leaders for every group, every company, every division within the company. And so it's a constant battle to make sure you've got good super people coming in place to succeed you.
It's a good farm club type of environment. If you put people in leadership roles, whether it's leadership of an industry segment or a service line, anything, you just give them a chance to show what they can do.
Right.
See how they adapt to it. Some people are very good professionals, but they're not interested in taking leadership roles. Other people are. And you need to be able to identify those folks.
So in my role, one of the things I need to constantly be thinking about is what does make LBMC different? David, if I asked you, what does make LBMC different?
We were never satisfied. We wanted to be more, and we didn't mind being different. And we kept looking at our clients, at what they needed, and asked the question, is that something we can do for them? And if it was something we could do for them, who did we have to get to lead the charge to be successful at it? And that's where a lot of our growth has come from. If we just stayed the way we were when the day we started doing audits and tax returns, I'm sure we'd have a successful little small firm. But it's when we started doing all the other things that we've done, and over the years how we've been able to come up with ideas early on and get ahead of the crowd. I was fortunate to be on the board of the AICPA and heard about all this security and privacy that was coming down the pike, and the SOX works that was coming down the pike. Came back and talked with Mike, and we figured out how we should get in that business, and we hired Paul Damastis to lead the charge and on the internal audit side. And we didn't have a single client for a year, but we knew that it was coming. And so I think what's made us different is, number one, we're more willing to try different things, and number two, we're willing to make investments.
Yeah, I think as much as anything, we were probably more patient about it than some of the firms have been. And we learned some things pretty early on that made it doable for us, in the sense that we respected the abilities of others and the expertise of others. So when we'd go down these paths of technology or HR or investments or staffing, we didn't take an audit partner or an audit manager that didn't have much to do and tell them to go do a technology project. We went and got really good leaders, people that really were great at what they did, and we let them do that. And I think that's the important things. And then it all comes back to the other thing that David says a lot too. We've come to know it and know it well. We got comfortable with the concept of it always takes longer and it always costs more. And we've learned that again and again and again during this process. But if you do it right, it'll still pay off.
Well, what we learned is if we have a good idea and at first it's not working, we may just have to keep working at it a little longer, or we may have to change the idea a little bit, or we might have to get different leadership. And when we do those things, we've been able to, if it really was a good idea, a good service that our clients really wanted, we've been tremendously successful. I look at our security practice now inside the CPA firm. That didn't exist 10 years ago. And it's a huge practice, and it's a national practice. We do business with big companies all across the country. Our healthcare practice, we didn't do any healthcare. We didn't know anything about healthcare. We said we won't get in the healthcare business. So we went out and found Greg Eli to join the firm, and he helped us grow a healthcare practice, along with a lot of other people who came with that experience. And so it wasn't like, okay, well, David, why don't you go out and start a healthcare practice? I didn't know anything about healthcare. So we had to find the right person. And we were good at that. We were good at finding good people and sharing a vision with them to how they could be successful and how we could be successful together.
The purpose of this podcast is, make it count, which is a little bit of a pun to the accounting industry, obviously. But I think you both have been continually been a testament to that, and have brought that to the Middle Tennessee and now to the Southeast. So thank you both for your time and your attention today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, please follow, rate, review, and share Make It Count wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Learn more at lbmc.com/podcast.